Good afternoon, Paul and Bhargav. It's Monday, the 3rd of April. Here's the heads up brief for today. For the Southeast Asia production, we covered 19 issues. In North Asia, we covered 7. And for the Australasia and Pacific Islands, we covered 4. In South Asia, we covered 17 issues, plus the major issues in the Europe, Middle East, and Africa regions.
Okay, excellent. Go ahead, Uday. Hi, Bhargav. How are you?
Fine, Paul. Looking forward for the briefing.
Right. So in Thailand, authorities have increased security in Dindang in Bangkok. This is as the registration of election constituency candidates is underway. It's underway until the 7th of April. Prime Minister Prayut, Deputy Prime Minister Prawit, and other party heads and leaders have accompanied some of the candidates, constituency candidates, earlier today.
Thank you.
Also in Thailand, a Chinese national was kidnapped in a kidnap for ransom case. The captors killed the victim after his family could not pay the ransom. Police suspect that the kidnappers were part of a Chinese criminal network operating in Nonthaburi province.
Yeah, okay. Look, I'm going to Bangkok tomorrow and I've got a couple of meetings relevant to this specific issue. I'll brief you on that later. Thank you.
All right. In Indonesia, authorities will deploy nearly 150,000 security forces. This is police and military personnel across the country for Eid and the homecoming that happens around that time, which will be around the 21st of April.
Thank you.
And in the Philippines, a gas-fired power plant in Batangas province will be the country's first LNG import terminal. Philippines is set to receive its first cargo in the middle of this month.
Okay, thanks.
In South Asia, in Pakistan, authorities suspended 28 Sindh police officers for their involvement in oil smuggling. Oil smuggling from Iran is common because of the cheaper prices, and it cost Pakistan hundreds of millions in revenue. In 2021, over $2 billion worth of fuel was smuggled into Pakistan illegally.
This is a persistent issue in Pakistan. There is a long and porous border with Iran where they keep smuggling things like oil. As this has become more of an issue when the inflation is really high in the recent economic crisis. This also raises question about the command and control the security forces have, despite the military having a heavy hand. The borders are always challenging, whether it's Afghanistan, India, or Iran for that matter, which has a very hot and cold relationship with Pakistan. They are more than happy to profit from the inflation hit economy in Pakistan.
Right. In India, unrest after a Hindu festival last week continued in places across India over the weekend. 1 person was killed in an explosion in Bihar. 20 people were arrested for engaging in violence in Mumbai in Maharashtra. 1 person was killed in West Bengal and 4 people were stabbed in Karnataka and Assam.
This is very interesting because the 2 worst hit states happen to be Bihar and Bengal, which have a problem of political as well as communal polarization. If we see Bihar and Bengal specifically, BJP is not in power. That is the right-wing government which is in power in the center. So they are trying to make inroads into areas where they are not in power, specifically Bengal. And Bihar, they had a major falling out with the state government led by JDU, a regional party. And I see a political angle here. As and when there is a chance to make inroads and leave a right-wing footprint, they use such fringe groups to initiate certain violence. Of course, allegedly, we can't really put a finger on it because BJP is nowhere to be seen anywhere close to the rallies which are causing the violence. And as far as Karnataka and Mumbai is concerned, you can see that the incidents are sporadic. These flare up at a more localized level, more so in Karnataka. If we see the location, it's a rural area, nowhere near the metropolitan cities. So the security issues do not really prop up where the industries are, but largely in places where BJP wants to gain a foothold.
Right. Those are very good points, Barbara. Moving over to Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So Russian authorities yesterday announced that they will move tactical nuclear weapons near the western borders of Belarus. Now, this comes as the head of the Wagner Group said that Bakhmut city had fallen to Russia. And he also said that Ukrainian troops were only stationed on the western outsides of the city.
It is interesting that Wagner Group is becoming vocal as far as Ukrainian operations are concerned. They are known to operate in the shadows. I guess it's the high time we recognize Wagner as part of the security apparatus of Moscow. Paul, would you like to comment on that?
I just agree totally. I mean, they've actually come out and stated that they're no longer trying to hide it. They've actually stated right down to the order of battle, the strength they've got, how many people, right down to the dispositions and where they're using them. So it used to be a private army used as sort of Putin's spear, but now it's just become part of the overall order of battle in the current Ukraine setting. But it's still doing other things we don't know about. Assassinations, kidnappings, extortions, all ultimately tasked by the state. So, no, good observation, Bhargav.
Saudi Arabia and other countries under OPEC yesterday announced cuts in oil production. They will cut production by around 1 million barrels per day, by over 1 million barrels per day. Russian authorities also yesterday said that the country will extend a voluntary reduction in production of around 500,000 barrels per day until the end of this year. Prices have already increased as of this morning.
Uday, we need to watch out for the relationship between the OPEC led by Saudi Arabia and the West. The West is already crippled on the energy crisis, and this will also have impact on other smaller states like Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka, which have really high inflation hitting them hard in the last year or so. So we need to watch closely on how the price rise will have an impact at the ground level.
Yes.
And look, one other point that's relevant to that too, Uday and Bhargav, just looking at the screen here, it's just sort of become public that the anti-Russian alliance is splintering. Japan has just agreed to buy Russian oil at a price above the cap, and that others are likely to follow that. And that's that multipolarization we've been discussing. So we can expect a dichotomy or a bipolarization, indeed a multipolarization of groups splitting away. So what is driving a lot of the geopolitical security paradigms is America's had fundamentally, a hegemony on power, whereas now it's still running social democratic values and trying to cascade those around the world, that often thinking it's doing wonderful idyllic stuff when it's actually bullying people to be more like them or else. But they're starting to lose that control and that power, and that signifies massive opportunities and massive potential impacts depending on how companies are vulnerable to what is going to be a monumental geopolitical shift. Thanks for the brief today, Uday. Great. Thanks for your inputs, Bhargav.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Uday, for the brief.